Welcome to the Wealthy Business Goddess Show for purpose-driven, passion-fueled spiritual entrepreneurs ready to live their purpose, passion and prosperity as they create the life and business of their dreams whilst transforming the world, doing what they love and making fabulous money. Each week we bring you inspiring and empowering topics, popular thought leaders to empower you to transform all areas of your life and business. With your host, spiritual intuitive, entrepreneur, transformational business coach and mentor, Kimberly Lovell.
Welcome everybody, this is Kimberly Lovell, your host of the Wealthy Business Goddess Show, and I'm super excited to share with you a beautiful guest today, Lisa Murray. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lisa. Lisa is a creation catalyst. She helps multi-creative entrepreneurs and change makers to create their ideas in nurturing and playful ways. She's a word alchemist, a nurturer of possibilities and people, a lover of ideas, an unconventional business coach, and a reverent creator of new realities. Her book, Stop Waiting, Start Creating, launched in 2016, and it's absolutely amazing. And her second book, Creating Beyond Burnout, will be available in 2017. Lisa is the founder of Creativity Lab. She has an MBA in entrepreneurship and leadership and is an access consciousness facilitator. Join Lisa for Adventures in Creating via businessalchemylab.com and creativitylab.tv. So welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Kimberly. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to have you here. So we're talking about your hidden creative gifts. So maybe you can tell us about your definition of creativity.
Yeah, for me, creativity is so much bigger than what people think it is, because most people put it in the context of, oh, it's art or it's painting or, that kind of thing. It's making something with your hands. Whereas I look at creativity as the creation of something different in the world. And so it might be an art or a painting or something, and it can be so much more. It can be the creation of a business. It can be the creation of your life. It can be literally how you choose to live in a moment by moment, day by day way. Because, you can slap the food on the plate or you can actually make it look beautiful. There's so many different things that you can do with creativity. So for me, it's very much about looking at what our choices are and how we can bring those choices to create something that is greater, that is different, that is more fun, more enjoyable, more beautiful.
I love that. And I think so many of us have had our creativity squashed because we feel like we're not creative, like we're not artists, or all those things that we've been taught, perhaps, that's what creativity is. But as you say, we're creators of our universe and creating our reality. So, yeah, great. So, do we, what are the benefits of us being creative? How does it serve us to be creative?
Yeah, well, for me, I had burnout really, really, really severely. Mm-hmm. Sort of the can't walk, can't eat chocolate. What are you saying to me? Couldn't hear anything almost kind of burnout. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people thought it was adrenal and all these other things. And what I really got to at the end of it was that it was literally that my creativity had been so squashed out of me, by the kinds of jobs that are really soul destroying, by working crazy hours, by sort of all these things that basically would lead to stress and anxiety and depression and all of those kinds of things. And creativity to me is this thing that brings you alive. It allows you to know who you are. It actually invites you on adventures, and it actually does a lot of I won't say it is behind the scenes work to actually allow you to be happy, to be present, and to actually enjoy your life rather than making it into this thing that just seems to be about hard work and never getting anywhere. It's kind of the opposite of suffering, actually. And most people, it's so interesting because, there's so much conversation about you've got to suffer for your art. But actually, for me, it's like, well, what if you didn't? What if you could actually look at creativity as this really amazing adventure that actually takes you towards being more of who you are and being who you truly like to be in the world? Whenever people come to me and they've got depression or, they're feeling bored or whatever it might be, my first sort of, antidote to that is always to say, well, start being curious. Start actually inviting more creativity into your world.
I love that. So tell us about how you can invite more creativity into your world. Like, how do we do that in our lives?
Okay, well, for every person it's different. And of course, this is the interesting thing because, when I had the burnout and someone said this to me after about a year, they were like, you should be creative. That's the thing that you need to do. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Because I went straight to art and I'm like, I'm not that good at art, And of course, as it turns out, I'm a lot better at art than I realized, but I had all these points of view that I wasn't good at it, which is what you learn at school. And so for me, I had to go on this sort of adventure of discovery of, well, what does being more creative look like? And one of the things for me was literally to do something different every day. Because what I realized was I didn't know what was creative for me. And if I wasn't going to do anything different, I was never going to find out because it's not something you can get to by thinking, and a lot of us try really hard. And of course, I tried really hard because I was very in a thinking phase back then. And I tried to work it all out by thinking. But actually, it doesn't work like that. It works by having adventures, by trying new things, by playing with things. And literally a lot of it, finding out how you're creative comes from being willing for things to go wrong, being willing for things to not have an outcome, being willing to get totally different results. A lot of scientists are creative, even though they don't like to admit it. And it's this thing of being willing to explore and to have curiosity. And so they are the starting points for being creative. And as you take steps towards that in whatever way you can, all sorts of things then come to you. And, for me now, like when I first started, writing a list of 5 ways to be creative was actually quite the challenge. And now, I could probably write you a list of 50 really easily. And I will give people a few examples because I know that when they're first starting out, it's like, where do I start? And it's so frustrating when someone says, yeah, just go and play. You're like, I don't even like playing. Shut up. Go away.
I was just thinking 50 examples of being creative would be great.
Yeah. And I'm going to give you 50 right now because the danger of that, and it's funny because people used to ask me for my lists. And the danger of that is that they never get to discover what it is for them. Because, of course, what is creative for me may or may not be creative for you. So for me, I looked a lot to my childhood, and this is something that everyone can do. I looked at, well, what did I really enjoy? So I really enjoyed cooking, okay, and I enjoyed adapting the recipes. And, my mother tells horrific stories of things that I made that were inedible, and I don't remember that. I remember the pleasure of being in the kitchen, mixing everything up and having a really good time, and obviously over the years things got more edible because people quite enjoy my cooking now. But it's this thing of not making yourself wrong, right? Of having the adventure and the exploration of it and not making yourself wrong and going, well, I wonder how that could work better next time, rather than looking at the thing of, well, my family said that was inedible. I don't remember that. So good thing, right? So things like cooking for me, I actually did do some painting when I was a kid, but because I couldn't paint a tree like other people painted a tree, I thought I was bad at that. And it's actually only taken me until the last couple of years to discover ways of painting that I really enjoy that actually turn out really beautiful. So this is where you've got to look at not the result of something, but how it makes you feel. Because one thing I knew was that painting made me feel really happy. Even as like a teenager, I could paint for hours and it wouldn't look like anything special. But the action of it gave me a space. And I could remember that space and the magic and the beauty of that space. And so then I was like, okay, so what other things made me feel like that? Oh, writing. Writing makes me feel like that. So that became another way of being creative. And for me, going out in nature, I will go out and I will talk to all the trees and touch all the different things, and that has a really creative energy to me because it's another thing that clears my mind. So for me, creativity comes when my mind is clear. It isn't there when my mind is really messy and jumbled. Yeah. So for me, one of the things is always looking to what will clear my mind right now.
I love that. And nature's so healing, isn't it? I love when you're talking about the trees because I do that. I've got a certain place that I drive and there's an arch of trees and I always feel it's like my inner child feels like they're combing my hair as we drive through, the roof down. It's like, oh. So nature's wonderful for that.
It is. It totally is. And it's funny because when I was looking at where would I do this video tonight because it's dark here now, it was like this plant behind me was like, well, I'd like to be in the video.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm sure you can. So I just set up the lights so that it could. And this is the fun of it, right? Like, if you're going to be creative, you won't do your videos in the same place every time. You'll go, well, what's going to work for right now? It's actually very much about being present and actually allowing all of the possibilities to be available to you so that you can choose something different, so you can actually do something that you maybe haven't done before. You know, this is not my normal video setup, but I thought, oh, it might be fun tonight. I'll try it out and see. And here we are, you know.
It's interesting because this is my usual setup, so I'm thinking now, but I chose it because of the lighting and lots of things, so I'll have a think about that later.
Well, it's just fun to explore and try different ones.
Well, I guess what's coming up for me then as you're talking about that is I know that sometimes when I do things, if they don't go according to plan, I could kind of feel frustrated, and then obviously with that energy, and then I kind of feel anxious because it's kind of like I feel like I'm going to get it wrong again, and so it's really interesting, isn't it, how we can open up our creativity or how we can kind of close it down ourselves. It's so fascinating to me because I remember when this woman said to me, you're going to have to be more creative. I just wanted to swear at her. I did not find that a very helpful answer at the time. And of course it's so very funny because when I look back at the jobs that I loved, they were the ones where I got to be creative in some way. I had a job at one point where my job was to sell commercial Christmas decorations. And when you look at it, you go, oh my gosh, the magic of that and the beauty of that. But I never really let myself be as creative as I could have been with that because there were always very creative people in that business. People I would have judged as more creative than me. And yet when I look at it now, it wasn't that I couldn't do it. It was that I didn't allow myself the space for it. And this is where, sometimes you do need to learn a few tricks of the trade. One of the things I learned from that job was that when you decorate a Christmas tree, you want to use odd numbers of everything. And you want to actually place things in an odd numbered sequence. And really simple things like that make a huge difference to the balance and how something actually looks. And so sometimes with creativity, we think we're bad at it, but what we just need to do is discover a few of the, what I call those sort of core, and I don't want to call them rules because they're not really rules. But it is that thing of, you've got to know the rules to break them. But it's this thing of actually knowing, well, what are those rules and why are they that way? And then, well, okay, so if I tweak this and I tweak that and I play with this and I play with that, how's it going to work? And for me, that's a lot of what it's been because it's so easy to judge yourself for being bad at something when it's not that you're bad at it. You just haven't found the way that it works for you. And if you keep exploring, if you look at Einstein and people like that, and a lot of scientists actually, and this is why, I do look at science as something that's very creative. A lot of scientists don't because they think it's all the black and white, but some of the scientists I knew when I ran a research institute were incredibly creative and brilliant in their creativity, And one thing I'm really aware of is that it's this thing of being willing to tweak all of the things that how people say you should do something to get to the space where it works for you, And so when I go to the art shop, I ask them a lot of questions because I realize that I'm never going to do it the way normal people do it. But if I know the way that other people do it, then it gives me just enough information to be dangerous, basically. And then I can actually have fun with it all and see where it can lead and how you can do things. But you have to be in a space of no judgment with that. So if you judge what you're creating, you will never create something greater. But if you just keep going, wow, that's interesting, I wonder what else I can create, then that question opens up more doors. Beautiful, I love that. So it's about us staying in that question and that possibility of, what can we create and what's possible that we haven't thought of even. I love what you're saying about the Christmas tree because I was just thinking there's so many, my usual thing would be to do things symmetrical, and that's kind of like the order, isn't it? And then I'm thinking about gardens and, nature isn't all cultured and everything's the same height and it's higgledy-piggledy and it's like really beautiful, and yet it seems that we get taught to create order.
Oh, well, absolutely. And there are some things that definitely work. If you put a group of objects together, odd numbers look better than even numbers. That's a known thing. And if you put the right group of things together. Sometimes even numbers can look fantastic. So this is where any rule can be broken, and you've got to be the one to be curious enough to find out, well, how can you break it and make it even better? You know, and that to me is really the joy of creativity, is this whole thing of, well, you know, it's not so much what rule can I break, but how can I make this greater than what it is so far? You know, and there's a lot of joy in just playing. And this is where people want to do something creative, but they want to get it right the first time, because, you know, most of our life is about right and wrong. And I'll never forget one of the very first Creativity Lab 3-day events that I ran. I gave everyone this really playful exercise to do around drawing circles. And I basically said to them, you know, get a big piece of card, and we had all the materials there, and draw circles. And, you know, some people were just straight in there and just drawing circles in whatever way they wanted. Other people were like, well, how should the circles be? How big should they be? How many should there be? And I'm like, well, you get to choose, you know. And what was really interesting was one person said to me, well, what's the outcome of this? And they were really quite ferocious. And I said, what would you like it to be? And it was really funny, because for me, the outcome was that they would get to explore what they knew about the circles. They would get to be curious about, well, if I add these circles, and what can these circles turn into? And, you know, there's so many things you can do with just circles. And I wanted them to get the energy of being creative. But if I told them that at the beginning, then they would have tried to get it right, you know. And so this is where we can really trip ourselves up so easily. And yet it's this thing of, for me, creativity has to be, there can't be a predetermined outcome to it. It has to be something where you get to play and explore. Because if there's a predetermined outcome, that's not creativity. That is basically a plan, you know? And they're two very different things.
Yeah. I think you've just really highlighted that difference. I love that. Okay. So how can we be more creative in business, and how can we be more creative with money?
Ooh,
yeah,
favorite topic coming right up. Yeah. Well, you know, business. Oh gosh, where would I start with that? You know, I've had my business, like Creativity Lab, which has actually in the last week turned into Creative Alchemy. It's got a new name, but I've had it for actually 4 years. But even before I had it, 5 years maybe now. I don't know, around that. I'm terrible at time, but what was interesting was, even before that, the energy was there, you know, and so I was creating things that were so related to this business even before it became a business. And I think one of the things that a lot of people think, oh, I have to have the business idea all worked out. I have to have the business plan and all the income streams all worked out before I start. You know, in one of my early business coaching sessions, I remember someone coming to me, and they wanted to set up some kind of online fashion business. But they wanted me to help them draw out the detail of a 5-year plan in detail. And like, you know, any business in this environment, crazy, but a fashion business? And I was like, I'm really sorry, I can't help you do that. And not only I won't help you do that, because it won't work. Anyway, they didn't choose me as their coach because they wanted someone to do that. And, you know, they wanted to almost prove that the business would work before they did anything, before they even, you know, had any proof of concept. And it doesn't work like that. So what I am going to say about this is that I've created adventures. In the last 8 or so years, I've literally just kept creating adventures. An idea would come to me and I would create it. Another idea would come and I would create it. And on the surface, it looked like I was crazy, because they were often really diverse topics and, you know, all sorts of different ways of presenting them. And I was having a lot of fun. When I say was, I still am. But literally for me, I was very curious about all these things and how they could be and what worked and what didn't and why. And so all of that curiosity and all of that spontaneity actually built this big mound of creative compost. And now, as Creativity Lab turns into Creative Alchemy, it has become, all of that compost is going to be turned into something very magical. And so what I'm going to say to you is, you need to follow the energy. You need to actually, those little tweaks, those little ideas which just tug at you and tug at you, you need to follow them. You need to actually give them life, because those are the things that are taking you to exactly where you want to go, that you don't even know exactly what it looks like yet, but they're taking you there. And if you follow them and trust yourself, that even if it looks like nothing on the surface, that it's going somewhere, there'll come this point where all of a sudden it all falls together and you go, oh, wow, I had no idea it was going to come to be this, and that's pretty much the point I'm at right now after 8 years. And it's funny because I've, had an enormous amount of fun along the way. And so what I'm going to say to you is look at how you can make your business fun. Look at how you can make it playful. Look at how you can make it unpredictable so that you're not doing the same thing every day. Because if you're doing the same thing every day, you're going to get really, really, really bored, basically. Most of us are set up to be creative, but we've killed it. And we've tried to pretend that that's not us because, this reality wants us to be, predictable and to do the same thing every day because that's what you should do. What if it's not? What if business doesn't have to be like that at all? So that's one part of it, okay? Then when you get to the money part of it, this is a really interesting thing, creativity and money, because I think a lot of people have misinterpreted that you want to actually, being creative with your money is like creative accounting and doing illegal things and, all that kind of stuff. And I prefer a slightly different route to that, So what I look at is, well, how, and whether you've got $50 to spend or whether you've got $5,000 or $5 million or more to actually create your business with, what I'm going to say is you want to actually look at, well, what's going to create the greatest possibilities in the world? What's actually going to outcreate everything I've ever created? Because when you use your money with those questions, it's not as important what you spend the money on or how you create the money, what programs you use and what you create to actually bring the money in. It's more about what change is the money going to create in the world. And, that concept has been very interesting to me for a very long time. And, I used to do marketing for shopping centres and I realised that I couldn't, and this is in my 20s, and then I got to this point where I couldn't keep doing it anymore because I realised that that wasn't how I wanted to see money used in the world. And yeah, it was a very interesting realization, when you're 20-something and that's what you've done for most of your working life. And then you go, actually, I literally can't, I haven't got my heart in that anymore. I can't do that anymore. And then every recruitment agent, because you're very good at it, every recruitment agent wants you to keep doing it. And you're just like, I will die if I keep doing this, And that was actually my first round of burnout at that point, where it was literally like, I cannot keep doing this. So the thing with creativity and money is that if you're using your money in creative, generative, joyful ways, then you won't get to the space of burnout. You won't get to that energy where you don't know how it all works. If you ask money to show you, and it comes in the most bizarre ways. Like for a while now, I've known that I would like to create some farms that would be really different and all over the world. And when I went to Europe last year, now, that was not a trip about the farms at all. It was, a trip about running events and a whole lot of different things that I wanted to do. The farms were not even in my thinking when I went. So my plans always change, and my plans did change on that trip, as they do. And literally, I ended up visiting about 3 or 4 different farms and seeing their business models and seeing how they worked with the public and all this stuff that I'd been quite curious about but hadn't even tried to really look into. And so this is the creativity in business. So one thing leads to another, leads you to a person who says, hey, do you want to do this? And if you try and define your business and limit your business to what's in front of you, all those little experiences and adventures don't come to you. And all of that is what's creating your business in 3 to 5 years' time, or even sooner. But, so when I go on a trip or when I create something for my business, I look at all of the possibilities. So, yeah, so that's a starting point. And you can ask me more detailed questions because it's like you gave me a really broad place to start. So,
no, I love that. So it's kind of about really thinking about how we can have more fun in our business, because I think a lot of people, they have that kind of sense of fun and joy, and we go into it with purpose and passion, and somehow that gets squashed when we look at what we have to do in order to market our business and so forth. So yeah. I love, I try and make my marketing fun. I know one time I went and did a live stream on a boat. It was like a pedal boat thing, which was a swan. And it was amazing. And then when I got home, I found that I'd had some sales come in, completely unrelated, you know, but it's like when we take time out of our business, money will still flow in, whereas we think we've got to be in it and working on it and, you know, all of that. So I love that. It kind of opens up that, that possibility. And I think for me, as we're talking, what I'm getting for myself around this is that creativity is about the freedom to be able to express, in any way that we choose to, and to enjoy that expression. Yeah.
Well, you know, we have a body. We have all these physical things around us. And mostly, you know, for a lot of the time I see people sort of treating all of that like as a nuisance, as something, you know, that's a problem. And, you know, for me, it's like everything around me has this sense of, well, what can I create with you? You know, and like where I live, it's a tiny beachside tourist town, basically. Very beautiful one, but it still is, you know, tiny beachside and tourist. And it would be very easy to be bored here. But I literally always look at, well, what can I create with what's here? And of course, I also look at that I live in the world. I don't actually look that I live just here, you know. But it is this really interesting thing of, if you don't allow any limitations, then if you actually infuse those energies of creativity into everything, then you won't allow the limitations that other people would see as a problem. You know, and I think this is the same in business as well. It's like, if you see everything as hard work and a problem, that's what it's going to show up as. But for me, I look at it and go, well, I wonder what I can create with this, or how can this work that would be fun for me, you know? And every time I create something, I'm literally looking at, how can I make this fun for me, even if it's my tax, you know, whatever it is that I'm actually working with, it's like, how can it be fun for me?
It's interesting, you know, it's a really interesting, you know, topic, because so much is coming up for me as you're talking, and this is really interesting. So one of the things that I did, I worked in a prison for 5 years, right? And I kind of, what I noticed in terms of my personal process was that often in my life, I have been the one that's wanted to go in and change institutions and organisations and break the rules, right? But it's like I realised that I've always gone into those places, like looking literally for the bars and the limits. And it's almost like I need the limits in order to be able to push them. And I realised it was something about needing some level of safety. So I'm curious about how we can create the safety so that we can have it, that it can be safe for us to be free without needing to obligate those restrictions or those rules or limits, because I'm sure that that shows up for a lot of people, not just me.
Yeah. Oh, it's a very huge topic, what you've just opened up. Yes. And wow. Okay, and I've got a lot to say about it. I'm just thinking, where am I?
Maybe we'll need to get you back another time.
But let's have a look at that, because so one of the things is that we do hide our creative energies from ourselves. You know, and this is a thing that I've been looking at really intensely in the last couple of months, and I've looked at it a lot over the years at different levels and layers, you know, and like if you don't want the world to see you, that's one level of it, you know, and then as you sort of move past different levels, different things come. And what I have been really aware of is that, you know, when we fully engage with our creative energies, we are free and we're very uncontrollable according to the world. And for a lot of people in the world, that's terrifying, you know. And so you often do receive a lot of judgment. The more creative you get, the more free you get, the more people show up who are just like wanting to judge you and, you know, contain you. And so you've got to be willing to not necessarily resist them, but simply to outcreate them, to go, you know what, I'm thankful and I'm grateful for you, and I'm not going to stop because of you. You know, so that's something that for me, I've looked at a lot. And what this really comes to ultimately, this feeling of safety, and it's so interesting that you're asking me this now, because literally I've only got to this piece of it in the last couple of weeks. And yeah, it's really interesting, right? Like you get the piece of information and you're like, oh my gosh, because I was always looking at how, because Dr. Dane here from Access Consciousness at one point a few weeks back at the ESB class in Noosa said to me, you know, you want to let all of your creative energies into the world, and you're going to have to lower your barriers and realize that you're not going to break the world. You're not dangerous, you know, all these different things. You're not evil, and that you don't have to continue to hide yourself. And we were looking at the thing of, you know, lowering my barriers and me being able to do that. And there was still this thing where I couldn't quite let that full expression go. And, you know, for some people who know what I'm like, they're like, really? There's more? I'm like, there's way more. It's still coming. And but what was interesting, what I got to was that I hadn't ever really occupied the space of who I am, my creative energies. And so if you're not occupying the space of it, then you don't feel safe, because if I look at my creative energies as only this energy that's in front of me here, everything that's behind me, if I haven't occupied all of that space, and having a lot of presence with all of that creative energy, then I won't feel safe. So there's this kind of like chicken and egg thing, right? Where you literally have to occupy the space to feel safe, to actually be those creative energies, you know. And it's a really interesting thing, and I'm still playing with it. I can't say I'm fully there yet in the way that I know is possible, but it is this. Ultimately, it's the communion and the connection with the oneness of everything that exists that actually allows you to be in that space where all creative energies are available to you. And I've been looking at this for many years. You know, this is something that I've played with in many different ways. And I've had glimpses of it, and I've had parts of it. And now it feels like it's this space of it all coming together, where the more I just make the demand of myself to occupy the space of all creative energies that I have available to me, you know, like, it's really interesting how it changes your outer world. One thing I can say is that a lot more people randomly talk to you. Dogs come up and demand to be patted. Like, it's been really interesting, the weird things that have been happening since I've been really actively doing this. And, you know, ultimately we need to acknowledge too that many of us, you know, have had lives as healers and, you know, witches and lots of different things that maybe we're not appreciated for everything that they are. And we've been tortured and maimed and killed for that. And you want to actually, you know, play with that, just acknowledge that. And, you know, I did a whole call series called Unhiding You, where we went through a lot of that, you know, and did a lot of clearings around that. Because for a lot of people, there's still sort of a trauma associated with that. And if you start to acknowledge that we're in a different time, that's not going to happen in this lifetime, you know, this reality, it's a bit different now. And also that if you occupy the space, your awareness is such that you won't put yourself in a situation where you could get killed for having all those creative energies. And so that then unleashes this whole other capacity for creating that maybe wasn't there before. So that's the short nutshell version of a very big topic.
I love that. So it's about embodying all of who we are, and when we're safe and we're okay and we're accepting of all of who we are, then we're safe, because it's really all about us, isn't it? We're projecting a lot of it, or creating a lot of it. So, you know, once we're okay with who we are, then
well, it's the thing of acknowledging your awareness, actually, because for me to occupy a lot more space, so I would always expand my energy out, but I didn't occupy the space. I still had kept me, the being. It's a hard thing to describe, but when you do it and you notice the difference, you'll get the difference. But what I noticed was when I really intensified me, the being, in occupying the space, it changed things really dynamically in terms of the space that I could be and the awareness that I had. And so I didn't feel like unexpected things were going to take me by surprise. You know, and this is an interesting thing with creative energies, because so much of it is about exploration and curiosity, and, you know, being willing to go to the edge of things and beyond the edge of things and to explore what hasn't been explored before. And so on one hand, you've got these energies that are taking you in that direction, and another side of it, you've got this thing wanting you to be safe, you know, and it really, I think being creative is one of the greatest gifts that life has for us, in the sense that you have to actually sort of come face to face with all of these things and actually learn to change them. You know, and this is why I don't really believe that the suffering artist has to exist, because if you actually really come to presence with these things and be willing to acknowledge the true magic of you as a creative being, it's a totally different universe. You don't ever run out of ideas. You don't ever lose your muse. You don't ever stop your creative energies, because you know that they're not going to be too much, and that you actually have so many places you could put them in the world, but it's just a daily adventure.
Mm-hmm. So I was catching myself thinking about this, occupying our space and how we do that. And then it's come to me that maybe it's not about knowing how we do it, but allowing ourselves to just do it and experience it, play with it.
Yeah. Look, it's an intensity of being. Really, it is an intensity of being. And it's a request. Like for me, I wake up and I really demand of myself to occupy the space of my house, of where I'm living, of Australia, of the world, of the multiverses. And it's literally this intensification of me as an energy in all of those areas and spaces. So it's a very hard thing to describe, but what you will know when you're doing it, because people, like the world, will respond to you differently. That's one thing I've noticed has been very clear since I've been playing with it. It's the willingness to own a space energetically, basically. Because if you know, and it's funny actually, this comes back to so a long time ago, I had an ex-partner who was really very abusive and narcissistic. And I remember at one point asking Gary Douglas from Access, you know, well, how would I never have him come near me again? And literally he was like, you have to be willing to own the space energetically and be so intimidating energetically that he wouldn't dare come near you. And this is the same for anyone you don't want to come near you, you know. And the interesting thing is that it also, so that's one way. You can be an intimidating energy, or you can do it as a creative energy, or you can do all of it, right? You don't have to do just one energy at a time. And so literally it's this, and this is why, you know, creativity and the energetic play space come together so beautifully for me, because like for me, it's a request of myself to energetically be that intensity of energy so that all creativity and all creative energies are available to me. And it's a demand and a request, and it comes when you be really present with it. There's not a how.
My mind is being blown at the moment. It's just like
I know, mine was blown when I first worked it out too. I was like, oh my gosh, the possibilities.
I'm just thinking about, you know, how maybe I'll just speak for me, I'm sure this is for other people too, but you know how that whole thing about owning our space and our space, as if there's like our space and then there's your space, my space and your space, and how we share space, and how my mind's just gone to, okay, so how can we, I know for me sometimes part of what I've been learning is about being more in my body, whereas I've been out of my body, so I'm coming in, and then that feels restrictive, you know, to have a body, be in a body. And so kind of like playing with that. But if we're all of this, which we are, all right, so if we are in our space and we're in all of our space, then where's there room for anybody else? I don't know where that's come from in my head, but how can you
No, it's a question a lot of people have.
Two people then fully occupying their space, so it's like there's a space and we're both in that space.
Yeah. Cool. Well, there's a lot of space between the molecules, right? And so literally, if you be space and you occupy all of the space where you are, then it doesn't stop other people. Okay. And this is the thing. It doesn't stop anyone else from also doing the same thing. Like we've had a conversation in the house I live in with all the people that live here about what would it be like if everyone would occupy the space? Because what happens then is that there's a presence where there can be more for everyone, actually.
I just think like molecules dancing together.
Yeah. And literally this is the energy of oneness. Actually what it takes you to is the energy of oneness. And so literally if you don't create any separation between you and other people, between you and other things, between you and all those other energies, if you just go, well, everything, you know, consciousness includes everything and judges nothing. This is the physical, what do I say, embodiment really of including everything. Because when you occupy the space, you are including everything and everyone. And, funnily for me, it actually feels like I'm more present and more here and more with my body than I ever have been before.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the fact that people see me now, like people come up in the street and will start conversations, which I find fascinating because I've never had that my entire life, and I can see that there's this thing that's changing where people can perceive me in a different way because that occupying of the space means so I know what you're talking about when you say, oh, you feel like you've been out there and now you're trying to be in your body. What if it's that you're not in or out, but what if it's literally like all of you is everywhere? Mm. All of you is everywhere is probably the best way I could describe it. Yeah. And that then means that you've got access to all creative energies wherever they may be. Mm. And so that then means that when you're going, well, this is boring, I'd like to do it a different way. Okay, universe, show me what's possible here. The inspiration can come from anywhere and everywhere.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting now, it's almost as though, we all are everywhere. So it's about focus. So for me, it's like it's like when we focus, we can be zooming in or zooming out, and we want to be in that. Well, I still want to zoom in and zoom out, but hold that bit that we are all of this, and that's kind of like the context. That is who we are, our real.
Yeah. And then it's simply a matter of, well, what do I want to play with right now?
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily focus because multiple energies can be there at once and multiple creations and all sorts of things. But it's this thing of when you have more presence with what we just talked about, you actually will have more presence with a lot of things at once. And, this is the thing that I think that the people years and years ago who were talking about multitasking were trying to get to. Yeah. But actually what they did was just made you feel really busy and not very happy. But actually what it is this presence with everything that then allows all of your projects to contribute to each other, all of your ideas to contribute to each other. All of the people that you're sitting next to in a cafe, what if all of their energies could contribute to what you're creating? Mm. So it's a very different way of being with the creative energies. And I'm still playing with it and still exploring it and still really looking at, this is, because I've played with it a lot over the years in different ways. And now when I've added this piece of occupying the space, it's definitely created something far greater because you're not always looking to be safe. You're not always looking for people to like what you do. You're looking for, well, what's available to me and how can I explore it and play with it?
Beautiful. So, our creative energies are essential to living joyfully. We've talked about everything that is wrong in our life is improved when we start being creative. That creativity is a moment-to-moment choice. So it's not something that we have to kind of make time for because we're always being creative. And that I love this one, the creative compost that we generate through every act of creativity feeds our future possibilities and expands our capacity for creating change in the world. It's just beautiful. Lisa, thank you so much for all that you've given to us today. There's so much juice and energy and all sorts that we think we can play with. So thank you for that. You have a beautiful free gift. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your free gift that you're offering?
Yes, it's going to be a little preview of my new Creative Alchemy Lab. And you will find it at creativitylab.tv/gift. Very easy way to find it, yes. And because my idea is that this creative compost, that we have, it's really a way of sort of starting you on the track to finding that and exploring what that is for you and bringing more of your creative energies into the world. And it's lots of fun. Basically, it's very playful and fun. So
thank you so much. Well, it's certainly been playful and fun connecting with you today. And thank you so much for all that you've shared with us. And so, my darlings, until we meet again, much love, many blessings. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Wealthy Business Goddess Show. If you've enjoyed the show, subscribe and review our podcast. Sign up to receive your Wealthy Business Goddess resources and join us in the Wealthy Business Goddess community at www.lovekimberly.com/WBG. To find out more about how Kimberly can support you in creating the life and business of your dreams, or to watch the show via video, visit the website at www.kimberlylovell.com.